Welcome to the Money Chisme podcast, a fun and safe space for personal finance, investing, and entrepreneurship tips where we get the chisme on all things money with sass and humor. I am your host, Violeta, a first-generation Mexican immigrant, a real estate investor, entrepreneur, and I am here to help you kick ass in the financial game. Each week, I not only bring you expert tips, but also share the financial freedom and entrepreneurship journeys from our own community because representation is important. So grab un cafecito or si quieres an adult beverage and let's get into this week's Money Chisme. Well, the Fed's cut interest rates, and what is going on with the Department of Justice filing a lawsuit against RealPage? Let's get into some real estate chisme. So there are quite a few things that are going on in real estate that can affect, home buyers and real estate investors, and I want to talk about it. First up, let's talk about the mortgage interest rates. Currently, last that I checked recently, if you want to buy a home or invest in a property, you're looking at a mortgage interest rate of about 6.4% to roughly around 7.5%, depending on your credit score. Now, these rates are still high enough to deter a lot of buyers. And according to realtor.com, they did kind of like a survey, and there's still a lot of buyers that are just waiting to buy, but they're standing on the sidelines right now. And this is because they are trying to wait out and see if the interest rates are going to drop. And there's a few that they interviewed, and there's one home buyer that says, you know what, I'm gonna wait to buy until the interest rates drop down to below 5%. And they also interviewed a real estate investor, and they're like, I'm not going to buy or invest until the rates drop below 6.2%. And honestly, as a real estate investor, I kind of agree. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are still deals out there, but it is a bit harder to find them and make the numbers work with the high prices and these high interest rates. But, they're still out there. It's still doable, and I personally am still looking. But apparently the rumor is that the Feds will announce that they are going to start cutting down the rates. They are expected to announce it in their September 18 meeting. What does that mean? Well, typically the theory is that when they cut rates, that means that the banks, it's cheaper for them to borrow money, which in turn should or possibly could lower the mortgage interest rates, meaning that it's going to be more affordable to buy, homes because you're going to have a lower interest rate. But honestly, we're just going to have to wait and see what happens because, I've been hearing about possible interest cuts since last year, and you had the rumors that they were going to drop to below 5% and all that. And I think, they had said that it would drop below 6.4% by the end of the year. And the rumors have been circulating, so we really don't have any other choice than to wait it out and see what actually happens on September 18. I believe their meeting is the 17th and 18th, so I guess we're on standby for that. Next up is that the Department of Justice has filed an antitrust lawsuit against RealPage Inc. The DOJ is accusing the company of violating the antitrust laws through the use of the algorithm. They claim that the algorithm is allowing landlords to use the inflated prices to further hike up rental prices, which is, of course, we are all hurting, especially me now that, I'm renting again. And those rental prices have skyrocketed, and they're saying these types of algorithms are kind of to blame. So who is RealPage? RealPage is a platform where real estate owners and property managers can do things like various numerous things like find and screen tenants. They can do like market their properties. They can keep track of their properties through like the bookkeeping products that they have. And also, they could create leases and things like that. But it also provides data insights and like asset performance for their properties, which a lot of landlords and property managers use to help price their rentals. And so they're using these, and I guess they input stuff. I'm not too familiar on how exactly they're creating this data, but it creates some insights and they're able to track how the properties are doing. And then they use that to determine how much they're going to charge in rent. Now, allegedly, this allows them to follow the algorithm. Again, it's whatever gets inputted, and it's based on, how the algorithm does their calculations, I guess. And, the landlords and property managers will price it based on the algorithm versus the actual rental market and the actual competition. Now, of course, RealPage has released a statement saying that the DOJ is basically looking for a scapegoat and that it's not really going to help with these high rental prices. It's not going to really help make these rentals more affordable, because at the end of the day, it's also a supply issue. And, there's a shortage of homes and rentals. But my personal thoughts are that I do see a lot of landlords and property managers using more like AI and online tools to, help them determine rents. And of course, real estate investors use a lot of online tools to do their property analysis to kind of gauge how much rent they are expected to get so they could calculate their cash flow. And it's one of the things that, investors who are looking at a potential property, they're going to use these types of tools like RealPage and use it to do a market analysis and do their calculations. And I can see how this can give a false analysis and can really hurt, especially if you are looking to invest in a property in a certain area, because investors and landlords are going to follow the recommendations of these tools. But I have found that it can lead you astray, and I speak from personal experience, and I don't necessarily know the algorithm that my property managers use. I know the software they use, but I'm not sure like how the algorithm or how they are getting the prices of how much they're going to charge for rent. But I do know that towards the end of last year, I had to deal with this where, my property manager was, listing some units for $925. And, it was taking a little bit longer to rent them out. And the reality was that I eventually had to come down to around $850, I believe it was at that time, for the new tenants, the new leases. And that was a more accurate ideal rental price than the $925 that they were thinking. And I believe it's because of probably these types of tools. I'm sure, they take into account a few things, but I know they're probably using some software that has probably similar algorithms that were giving them a false market value of $925, and when reality the competition says you're going to get more like $850. So you really have to be careful when you're using these types of softwares and tools online, because the reality is probably going to be a little bit different. And the last thing that I want to talk about is the potential future of real estate. And we are in an election year, and Vice President and presidential candidate Kamala Harris has made her statements on how she plans to combat the home affordability problem. And as a real estate investor, and if you're someone that wants to buy a home within the next few years, this is something to keep in mind and, could help you plan if Kamala Harris wins the presidency. Because she wants to make owning a home and renting more affordable. And she's basically proposing a few ways to help that. So, as stated earlier, there's definitely a supply problem. And, there's just not enough homes available. There's not enough homes and rental properties that are being built, which is causing a lot of the shortage. And she wants to incentivize builders with a tax incentive for them to build starter homes, but also sell them to first time home buyers. Now, the thing is, there's a lot to consider. I mean, it's kind of difficult to tell like a builder, like, hey, build more starter homes because, it is a business and they have to balance that along with, being able to be profitable. And with labor costs and material costs that are super high right now, it's like, how are they going to make an affordable home, especially a starter home? How are they going to be able to build them and still make a profit? And I also find whenever like there's like initiatives like this, there or legislation that's coming up that they want to pass for something similar, there's always a lot of loopholes. It's always very loose and very vague that it's really ineffective. So I hope if this does come around, that it's more specific. Of course, this is just her general thoughts, and I know that hopefully it's going to be more detailed, have more definitions in there, and ensure that there's not loopholes where builders can, take advantage, get that tax incentive, and still, screw home buyers, first time home buyers, because there's several other legislations that the idea was to help out the people that wanted to buy homes, but then it was used for other things and it wasn't really beneficial. So hopefully there's not as many loopholes if this comes around. The second thing she wants to do is she wants to assist first time home buyers with down payment assistance. And she's proposing about up to $25,000 that you will be given. I'm not sure too much on the details yet, but the idea is that you will get down payment assistance for up to $25,000 towards your first home. And of course, one of the requirements is geared towards first time home buyers. And one of the requirements will be that you have paid your rent on time for the past 2 years. That's one of the things that I've seen. Now, of course, there's always the argument that, doing these types of programs is just going to, cause home prices to just go up because there's going to be more buyers, meaning there's going to be a higher demand and we're still short in supply of houses. So then house prices are going to go up. And so there's some, hesitation with that. And of course, there's going to be more competition, but also there's the idea that if they're not able to afford the down payment, then maybe they're not as financially literate or financially stable. So they might be put more at risk to default on their mortgage payment. But here in California, we already have a down payment assistance program. And I think it's similar, and it's more like a lottery system. So you have to like sign up and they give you a ticket and all that. But it is also geared for first time home buyers. And one of the things that I like is not only helping, first time home buyers with down payment assistance, but it also requires them to take some type of home buying and financial counseling to reduce that risk of them defaulting on a mortgage. But with this one, it's more like a loan. So if you decide that you want to sell that home, then you do pay back that down payment assistance. So I'm not sure if it's going to be the same, but I have mixed feelings as well. Like I like the idea of helping people, be, homeowners, because that's one of the greatest ways to get into real estate investing and start building wealth. But I think, I'm going to wait to see what all the details are and how that's going to be executed if it does come, to fruition, I guess. Lastly, one of the other things that she wants to do is to get Congress to pass the Stop Predatory Investing Act, which is, going to target those who have 50 or more single family homes as rental properties. And it's going to prevent them from being able to use one of the tax deductions. So I'll link it below, but I did do an episode of talking about like lots of the tax incentives that you get with real estate investing. And one of them is being able to deduct the interest that you pay when you have a mortgage. And so this act is going to prevent those who own 50 or more single family homes as rentals to be able to utilize that. Now, I know many people will not like that, and I guess I get it, but I personally like it because although I'm a real estate investor, I do not believe in buying up like neighborhoods and, stacking up single family homes. I do more multi-family homes. I did have some single family homes. I ended up selling them, but if you have a few, I don't see the problem with that. But there's investors, especially the big timers, that target a lot of single family homes and neighborhoods, and it definitely is, contributing to the problem of being able to afford homes and, driving up rental prices as well. So it's really going to affect these big timers that are like multi millionaires, which I don't really care about. So if you're a real estate investor, small timer like me, that is, just getting a few just to, build financial freedom and build a little bit of wealth and stuff, it's not really going to affect you. Because for most small timers, you usually buy a few single family homes and then you move on to like multi-family properties and then possibly go to apartment buildings. And that's not really going to affect you if this passes. And really it's going to affect these big companies that are buying up. So I don't know if it's going to be like an individual that owns 50 plus properties, or is it going to be a company, or what's going on with that. So I guess I'll see as more information comes out on that. Now, overall, all these things sound good in theory, and again, as I mentioned before, the legislation needs to be just more detailed and close some loopholes and make sure that they really define some of these things. For example, what's a starter home, how many square footage and stuff like that, price ranges and all that, and to prevent, these builders and, others to from going and finding loopholes where they could get around it and still get the tax incentive, which would be counterproductive. But honestly, I personally would like to see a little bit more legislation or talks about uh, addressing some of the property taxes and insurance rate hikes, because that is also driving up rent prices and really hurting current homeowners, and also driving up the house prices, because it's ridiculous with some of these freaking tax jumps. Like I know me and my dad were recently talking about it, that, his property taxes went really high, and insurance as well. And this is, similar stories across, the nation, of especially, like, I keep hearing, like, California is one, and Florida and Texas is one of the big ones that are getting hit of, insurance going up and property taxes going up. So current homeowners are really struggling. Their mortgage payments are going higher, and it's really straining some people's budgets. So I think these also need to be taken into account and figure out a way to bring some of that down, or at least slow it down, because the jumps are pretty high. And I would like to see a little bit more on that to actually, help combat the home affordability problem. Well, that's it for the real estate chisme. Don't forget, if you want to learn about rental property investing, you can download my free ebook on how to buy your first rental property. It's linked down below. It's free to download. Check it out. Hasta la próxima. Bye. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like and share this episode so others can also find this podcast. Don't forget to follow me on all my social medias listed in the show notes below, where you can also find resources to help you in your financial journey. If you're interested in becoming a guest on the podcast, you can find that information in the show notes. Other than that, thank you so much for your support, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.